Hello everyone, thanks for stopping by the Social Work Journal channel. For those of you who are familiar with my channel, I'm Del Tom and I'm the host of this channel, and today we are going to talk about narcissism. Now, why did I choose this topic? Narcissism is one of those terms that's used to describe people, and it is so prevalent. But here's the deal. Narcissism is actually a very rare disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder, that is. See, it is what it says in the title. It's a personality disorder. And the thing is if you look at the U.S. population, according to, let's see, the Bible of Mental Health, DSM-5, less than 6.2% actually has narcissistic personality disorder. That's how rare it is. Another thing is that narcissistic personality disorder is more common and prevalent in males than females. And when I say more common and prevalent in males than females, I mean 50 to 75% of people with narcissistic personality disorder are males. So, let's get into the criteria of narcissistic personality disorder so we can really distinguish the difference between other terminology that we have been skipping over and talking about narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I do want to point out before we get into it that I think the reason why the term is used so often and so frequently is because it's a phenomenon. It's interesting, and when you see strange behaviors in someone, you want to classify it. You want to understand what it is. But just because someone has some of these traits that we're going to talk about does not mean that they have narcissistic personality disorder or that they're a narcissist. Because believe it or not, if you were to look at any of the personality disorders in the DSM-5, we all have traits of certain personality disorders. See, what a personality disorder actually is it's just a way of viewing the world, right? How we perceive the world, what we do with that information, that's the personality disorder. Someone with a disorder sees the world, perceives information in a dysfunctional way. And a lot of times they lack insight. In some cases, with some personality disorders, they lack the ability to modulate their impulses and regulate their emotions. So they act in a way that's strange, bizarre, harmful to themselves or others, and they don't see it that way. But let's get into specifically narcissistic personality disorder. So, what are the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder? Number 1, has a grandiose sense of self-importance, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. I know some of you are sitting there thinking, I know someone just like that. They must be a narcissist. Nope. That could also be someone who is maybe overconfident, conceited. Remember, this is just one of the criteria. Let's look at another one. Is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Yes, you could find someone who's vain and they're not necessarily narcissistic, so they're over preoccupied with beauty, but that doesn't make them a narcissist. Let's keep reading. Believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood or should associate with other special high status people or institutions. Now, I think all of us probably know someone like this who could be not necessarily a narcissist, but perhaps an opportunist. So they only like to socialize with the cream of the crop or the people who are at the top because they believe that the people that they affiliate themselves with is a reflection of their own identity. Is this a skewed view, an skewed perception? Absolutely. Did we say at the beginning of this video that a person with a personality disorder has a dysfunction in their ability, how they perceive things, and also the way that they interpret that information that they perceive? Yes. However, that does not mean that you have narcissistic personality disorder. This is just one of the traits, one of the criteria. Let's keep reading. So, requires excessive admiration. Now, a person who requires a lot of admiration could just be insecure. But the question is how excessive is it? And also, when you look at some other factors like manipulation, which we haven't quite gotten into, but we're going to keep going. How excessive is it? And what do they do the manipulation for? Is it for something that most people would think, why would you manipulate somebody over that? That is so small. Let's keep going because I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. Okay, so a person who is entitled could possibly not be narcissist, but if they have very high expectations for people to kind of fall in line with what they want to do, and they retaliate when people don't, or if their response is a very strange and bizarre, dysregulated response, you know something is not quite right there, okay? Let's keep going because we've only got through 5 criteria. There's actually 9. Okay, is interpersonally exploitative. Now this is where we're getting into the manipulation. Takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. So I don't know, you guys who are familiar with my channel, you probably saw my short where I talked about narcissism, and I might have been a little hyperbolic. Well, maybe not. But I described narcissistic personality disorder as someone who likes to move people around like chess pieces, okay? So when I think of manipulation from a narcissist perspective, okay, this is someone who manipulates people in a way that is so odd and so disproportionate to the situation, it doesn't even make sense to manipulate someone. For instance, a manipulation, simply put, is just a way of changing or altering. And sometimes we manipulate people for the greater good. And when we do that, that's somewhat altruistic, correct? But let's say, for instance, I knew someone who was manipulating people just to get ahead at their job. And they would do things like spread rumors between people and say, oh, this person said this, and tell this other person, oh, this person said that, so that those people would not like each other. And that was their way of kind of triangulating and maintaining control. Now, most of us would not engage in this kind of behavior because we would be able to weigh the pros and cons and say, this is just my job. This is not my personal life. It's not like, I'm going to be a bridesmaid in these people's wedding. It's not like any of these people are going to be my kid's godparent. These are just people that I work with. So why would I go through all that effort to manipulate people so that I can triangulate between them so that I can maintain control? I don't really care about controlling them. But someone with narcissistic personality disorder, their self-esteem is so fractured that they need to manipulate people and be in control, because to be in control of other people is to have a sense of control within themselves. Because believe it or not, these people, even though they seem very together on the outside, on the inside, they are out of control. They feel out of control. They feel like they don't have a grip on the steering wheel to their destiny. So that's the difference. But let's keep going. Okay, lacks empathy. It is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Now, see, when you listen to my video, my short, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you go through my shorts because I talk a little bit about narcissistic personality disorder. Again, I was being a little hyperbolic. Maybe I wasn't being hyperbolic. But I described narcissistic personality disorder as someone who sees someone as objects. And that's exactly what it is. They don't see people as people with feelings. They know you have feelings, but they don't care about your feelings because they see you as an opportunity to get what they want. You are a means to an end. I'll say it again. With a person who has narcissistic personality disorder, you are a means to an end. So they don't see you as a person with these feelings that they need to empathize with, because they are looking at you and saying, what can I get out of you to get what I want? Because that's all they care about, is what they want. Okay, let's look at number 8. Is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her. Now, we know some people who are a little too full of themselves, a little conceited, and they always think somebody is jealous of them because they want to put off this whole gesture that they're all that in a bag of chips. Well, that's what a person who's insecure does. Now, we can all have insecurities sometimes, but a person with narcissistic personality disorder, their level of insecurity, it takes a whole nother height. Okay. So I've experienced this with some people on my job who have what I call psychological ownership. So I actually did a professional development with coworkers of mine about psychological ownership and how some people in their minds, they start blending what they do at their job with their identity. And so when someone else comes in who's very skilled and is able to do the job well, if that person in their mind has made up that, hey, I am the go-to person at this job, I am the best at this job, and someone else comes in and threatens that by their skills, that is a sign of psychological ownership. That is not the same thing as this. What this is saying is that this person is often envious of others and believes that others are often envious of them. It's almost like to get that self-esteem going and keep it pushing, they have to believe that somebody is jealous of them, right? Because in actuality, they don't want to believe that someone can be better than them because it's detrimental to their self-esteem. Remember, the core and the heart of a narcissist or a person with narcissistic personality disorder is that they are so insecure. They have such a fragile ego that any sort of threat or any sort of ideal that they are not the best, that they are not good enough, is very hurtful and detrimental to them. They cannot accept rejection. They cannot accept being second best or not the best the way that you and I can, because you and I process information differently than them. We understand that we can't be the best at everything, and that's okay. It has nothing to do with our identity. It has nothing to do with who we are, and we celebrate our strengths and we acknowledge our weaknesses or our difficulties, for a lack of better words. But not a narcissist. They just can't do that. I'll give you an example. I actually once knew a therapist that literally would not work with clients who had issues that they were not familiar with at all. Now, that's okay, because honestly, you should refer out if you have a client that comes to you and says, hey, in the consultation, I have this issue, and that's not your area of expertise. You want to refer out. This person would not even do that. This person would more so say, well, this person does not qualify for therapy. They don't need therapy. But in actuality, the person did need therapy. It's just that they couldn't meet that person's needs. And instead of referring out, they just said, yeah, they don't need services. I'm not going to recommend services at all. Because that person couldn't take someone else having an expertise in the area that they didn't and actually being able to help that client. That sounds really weird and bizarre, I know, because most of us are like, why? Why don't you just refer out? Just say, this is not my area. But again, a narcissist is a person who's highly insecure, has a fragile ego beyond what you could imagine, and they just can't accept that they're not the best at something. That's just what it is. Okay, let's get into the last criteria, which is shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. That's pretty self-explanatory. We don't have to go over that. But just so you know, in order to actually meet the full criterion to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, you have to have 5 out of these 9 traits. If you don't have 5 out of these 9 traits, it just means that you have traits of narcissistic personality disorder, or you are what we call somewhat symptomatic of narcissistic personality disorder, but you are not a narcissist. So the point is this: let's stop over pathologizing people. They can be a lot of different things. They could be manipulative. They could be delusional. They could be conceited. They could be insecure, but that doesn't make them a narcissist. Let's use this mental health education to be more tolerant and accepting of others, because even a person who has narcissistic personality disorder, now we know that the root of all this really is that the person just feels like they're not good enough. Thanks for watching.